David Harbour and Jodie Comer will be the two main leads in the new Alone in the Dark, searching out the dark secret of the missing Jeremy Hartwood and uncovering the truth about the Dark Man. Will insane voice talent, though, be enough to offset this insanely high expectations that Alone in the Dark is facing against recent releases like other third-person horror games, Resident Evil? Well, you tell me in the comments, but not all of what they're doing is about these voice actors. Are you a fan of Alone in the Dark from back in the day? Most people probably remember that Alone in the Dark on the 360 put the entire series in a coma for 11 years. Alone in the Dark also doesn't cater to exactly the same audiences and always skews closer to Call of Cthulhu-style mystery than the action or total action of Resident Evil. I'm going to explain what I saw in a secret hands-off presentation of the game and a huge series of interviews that THQ did about this. And I have to say, I found myself quite excited for this title. And I'll dive in more depth to it on the podcast as well. Alone in the Dark 2023 is a remake. It's a total re-envision of the original game, including taking influence from the actual original creator of Alone in the Dark in the series. He's actually got to see this game. It's a third-person action investigative horror game where you get to play as either Emily, played by the excellent Jodie Comer, or Edward Carnby, voiced by David Harbour, as they explore the mystery of the Hartwood curse. Each character also has unique takes on the same story, and everyone reacts differently depending on who you play as and when you go about taking on different tasks. One aspect of the game that the developers have worked hard on is reimagining that original game, but at the same time taking into account quality of life elements so unusual at those game times back in the day, including a new difficulty and clue system, which allows for you to choose how it will adjust clues and how they're found or given to you in the game. In the game, you can also run into the other character during the investigations, with Edward's investigation being more about the unique puzzle and the situation itself, and coming at it from a totally different angle than Emily's character. And Emily, she's actually trying to figure all this out and what happened to her uncle in relation to the curse itself, and isn't a paid-for gun for hire. And it's personal for her, and she deals with that in a different way. And the characters' interactions are going to be different throughout the game. One part that does seem to speak to me is that the mystery in this lies really in the homage to the original games. It deviates, though, from the exact storyline. It is not the same storyline. It presents a unique narrative that actually overlays on top of the foundation of the original in many ways, sort of seamlessly, weirdly combining them. The developers have said that they've merged their own fiction with the established lore, resulting in this captivating blend of secrets and surprises and callbacks, while also actually introducing a completely different story. Moreover, the new difficulty and clue system enhances that gameplay experience. This is something that excited me the moment I saw it. Players can customize the amount of information they receive for puzzles, including possibly audio cues, hints, navigation assistance, and story clues. Unlike other previously adjustable difficulties, the developers have crafted this organic system that goes beyond simply reducing item markers on the map. This approach allows for players to delve deeper into the character's perspective, granting them access to additional information, if desired, from that actual character. So imagine playing as Edward, fully immersed in the role of that investigator with all the settings dialed up to maximum. Then in a subsequent playthrough as Emily, you opt for a more challenging experience, disabling certain features and trying to figure more out yourself, or switching them, or just doing them both the same way. Characters are going to experience their own specific puzzles at times and story elements tied to a couple unique locations within the overarching location itself, and they'll have details that the other may not witness. It's supposed to be a dynamic perspective shift that heightens the overall immersion of the game and ensures that the playthroughs offer fresh discoveries through different senses, hearing, seeing, and just reading. After a number of interviews that they showed and all of the information that we're getting for Alone in the Dark, the one thing that I took away from this event was just that graphically, this is a game that doesn't equal currently, and we've got many months, a Resident Evil. Those type of games have really established a watermark for what a horror game should look like. And Alone in the Dark, at this time at least, doesn't. But it does fit solidly in that AA kind of situation where you look at the game and you can see what they're going with and the levels that they have for graphical prowess. This is Unreal 4, so we'll also have to see if it has a lot of the Unreal 4 engine problems that we've seen before. The game comes out on October 25th, though, and I think that's a perfect Halloween type game for a horror month. It includes also a pretty interesting pre-order campaign. I am not a pre-order fan, but this one has the prior game's costume as a pack-in with the original characters. It's got some looks and filters. It's got director audio, special guest interviews with the original creator as well. So there's a lot there in that pre-order campaign if you're a fan of pre-ordering games to show support or something like that. I'm not really a big pre-order fan, but the idea of running around as the very ancient-looking characters sort of appeals to me. The game also has a free DLC called Grace in the Dark. Now, this is a prequel that exists and visits in the same location of the main game proper, much like Jack in the Dark did from the original game, if you were alive back then. It's available now to download, and this lets you explore a lot of those locations. There's no combat in the DLC. You're playing as a kid, and this isn't BioShock. You can still feel how the game feels. You can get an idea of the gameplay and unlock a bit of the mystery of Alone in the Dark. What I saw, especially the musician chops, they've got incredibly talented musicians on this, and it's got a very LA noir, sort of a jazzy vibe to it with a lot of different stingers. It's going to be one of those soundtracks that really fits within that actual location's time frame. They've made sure that they ace that part of the game. And we actually got to hear some of the tracks and see and look at what some of the musicians were thinking about when they made them. You actually got to see them in one of the recording sessions. It looks very cool in that way. I'll run the trailer at the end of this so everybody can see that trailer if they want to see it. I like the idea of Alone in the Dark. I've been a big fan. Not, the 360 title. But these are one of those titles, when you look at it, and when you look at where it's paced and where it's set, this is a game that I think fills that AA section of third-person action horror very well. If they can end up nailing this in an October time frame, that's just going to help them from the very start thematically. If you guys have any questions, post them in the comments. This is a title that I'm pretty excited for just from the time frame and the idea of returning to this and their idea of not doing a remake, but instead actually overlaying everything on top. That's highly exciting to me. Also, if their clue system works out, this is a clue system I would love to see in other horror games. I'd love to see it in many games. We get a lot of dynamic difficulty in titles these days, and many of them always sell a big game, and they try to make it sound like it's going to be this huge dynamic thing. But the Alone in the Dark developers have stated that they're trying to go a step further, especially because you are these two characters in two separate sort of investigations in the same location, meeting, not meeting, engaging in puzzles maybe somebody else won't see or hearing conversations and that kind of stuff, so that you get sort of a full story. Again, this isn't a title that hasn't been done before in some of these aspects, and I get that, but for what I saw, Alone in the Dark looked awesome. So anyway, that's it for me. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike it, give it a thumbs down. I'd like to know what you think in the comments. Check out the Patreon. Peace out. Check out me. Oh, also, the channel. We got more reviews coming.
The way that we reimagined the game was basically looking at the original, and it feels like we've been cultivating a seed that was planted 30 years ago, and it has now grown into something even more dark, even more sinister.
I remember that with the first Alone in the Dark I made in 1992, we were basically doing something that nobody had done before. It was the first time that we could explore a big mansion, fight monsters, and solve difficult puzzles all in real-time 3D.
At the core is a haunted mansion. That's the most important part. It's Derceto, I would say. Feeling that you're trapped inside a kind of small space.
Yeah, I used to say back in the old days that it was another character.
Yeah, for sure.
With all the remakes going on today, you are never sure what you get at the end. I think that Michael and the team at PCs did a great job preserving the core feeling of the game. They even went further than everything I could expect 30 years ago.
It's really an honor to sort of be a part of the franchise in that sense, because it is such a, again, it can't be overstated. It's so special. It was such a new experience. As a fan of the original, I wanted to bring as much as I could into our version. And they might have a slightly different meaning and different reasons to be there, but if you know the old games, you will find a ton of references.
Do I know you from somewhere?
I remember you, Mr. Conby.
I feel the franchise is in good hands now, and I can't wait to play the full game.
To give you a taste of what the full game will be, we also created a prologue, and it features a character from the game called Grace Saunders, who is a little girl, and you play as her walking around Derceto and trying to post a letter. The prologue is the first glimpse into the atmosphere and the mood, and of course the story of the full game. So if you want to have a look, go and download it right now.
They're so creepy.
Our combat is intense and tough, and you will need to use every bullet you can find. And if you run out of bullets,
I'm out of bullets.
you might need to get in close and hit them with a melee weapon. Or if you're lucky, you can find something to throw. As mentioned before, your job is to find out what happened to Jeremy Hartwood. And to do that, you will need to visit some unexpected places. And to get to those places, you will need to find clues and solve some interesting puzzles. Depending how much you feel like a detective yourself, you can choose how much you want the game to help you find clues and where to go next.
So the biggest creative focus for me has for a long time been to reach something beyond the mundane, something spiritual. Mike, the director, and I, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what musical direction we wanted to take with this project. And when we finally decided to go for this kind of dark or doom jazz direction, our minds went directly to Jason, who is a master in this genre.
It's a very visual genre of music. The fact that it's inspired from noir films or noir detectives is already a good explanation of why this music fits very well for Alone in the Dark. There's a huge mountain and volcano of reverb with drums and screaming saxophones. To this explosion of hair-rising horror and big chaos.
As the player is drawn deeper into the game world, they will face off with the sinister presence known as the Dark Man.
The Dark Man isn't real, Jeremy. There's nothing he can do to hurt you.
How do you think any of this is happening? How do you still not trust my words?
Fine. Then let me help.
Don't be foolish. He will bury you next to me in his sunken temple for an eternity.
Real or not, something is definitely corrupting the mind of Jeremy Hartwood. Something very, very dangerous.